Good day to everyone. Today's GoToWebinar is on the Restraint Information System Collection process, or the short version called RISC. The webinar today should be around 30 minutes. This webinar format has a significant amount of information. There will be parts of this presentation we will go through quickly, yet we'll capture the full information on the notes part of the PowerPoint. If you have further questions on today's presentation, please feel free to contact us, and we will post the stated questions and answers on the RISC website at a later date. In reference to the slide in front of you, the RISC team for this year is listed on this screen. In addition, a key factor to the RISC team is the Leader Service Help Desk, open Mondays through Fridays, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Also, as you can see, the RISC team now also has a resource account listed above. Please feel free to contact us with any questions or to utilize the RIA when you want to through email. Today, 4 of the core 6 individuals charged with working the Restraint Information System Collection will be presenting today. Amy Pastrick, the Assistant Director of the Bureau of Special Education, and our Program Designer Keith Stankiewicz will not be joining us. The ones that will be joining us today and presenting are Lisa Hosworth, who represents the Central Region of Pennsylvania, Eric Lehman, who represents the western part, Stacy Mears, who represents the eastern part, and myself, who helps with reading the restraints as well as looking at data. So with that, let's go with our presentation. What we have here to start with also is to give you some regulatory references. We felt that this would be a good thing for you to have to keep within your favorites. What you see here is the Beck Basic Educational Circular on the use of restraints, the PA Code Chapter 14, Special Education, PA Code Chapter 10, Safe Schools, PA Code Chapter 711, Charters and Cyber Charter Schools, and the Patent Question and Answer, Special Education Pendium. So, how do you utilize or use the RISC system? This slide provides you the current hyperlink for you to sign into the RISC process. You might want to save this as well. This slide provides you the key elements of how to do it. The username and password you are given is not case sensitive. I would recommend you place your username and password in a secure place, yet also develop a system so that you have it readily available for your LEAs if they need to find the username and password if you decide to leave. I'm aware that many of you already know how to sign into the RISC program. However, we are walking everyone through the process, though it is the first time. So we apologize up front that this may be redundant for some, yet this way all of you will hear the same message. Anyway, before we go any further, we want to bring to your attention of the 5, soon to be 6, information links on the login page. The message in red, first yellow arrow, is an informational section to red flag you of any information that may be relevant to you. The second point points to the forget password. Clicking this text will guide you to attaining your forgotten password. The third link is a copy of the September 2016 guideline booklet for you to reference. This will be updated in 2022. The fourth yellow arrow provides you with the United States Department of Education reports and positions on restraints and seclusion. The fifth link is to download a copy of Microsoft Excel version of the restraint entry form that you can fill in and send to host districts. So if you have a student with an IEP who is restrained in attending an APS or any other out-of-district education entity, the out-of-district program will utilize this form to give it to the LEA. A question came up the other day how APSs and other non-educational or non-LEAs will be able to access the information on today's webinar. We will post it here as a 6th link. how to edit your contact information. At the beginning of the year, each year, we ask people to go in, or anytime that somebody changes within their capacity as a special ed director or support person, to edit their contact in the RISC system. The way you do this is you go into the system as you open up the screen, and as you sign in, and there's an Edit Contact button. Click on that, and it'll open up this screen. In this screen, you have two different things. You have an LEA name, the leader, which is the primary contact. We ask you to fill that out. Those are required. So if you were a special ed director, to put your name in there, or your special ed supervisor, whoever's in charge of the RISC system. And then if you have an ancillary staff or someone who also helps within that, to put that person's name in the optional secondary contact. Please disregard the box that's below that. What occurs if you have no restraints to record in each quarter? Again, no restraints occurring in a quarter, the LEA still needs to report zeros into the RISC system. If you have no restraints to report for the quarter, you will wait until the 2-week window opens at the end of the quarter to report 0 restraints. This window is on PenLink RISC chart that you are sent each quarter. Looking at that, do the following. Log into the RISC program using the username password. After logging in, if you haven't reported any restraints for the current quarter, you will see a link labeled "Click here to close the quarter." The link is located directly above the table of quarterly dates. The link will take you to a page where you can report that no restraints occurred for the quarter. You'll see that below in a screenshot that I'm going to show you shortly. You check the box to report 0, report no restraints for the quarter, and save, and that's it. If you do not see the link, then you've already reported 1 or more restraints for that quarter. So again, you'll open up this box. It'll say report 0 restraints occurred for whatever quarter that might be. You click I confirm that there are no restraints to quarter 3 for the third quarter for that year, and then you report no restraints for that quarter, and that completes that process.
Slides 10 through 15. I will discuss the process of how to enter a restraint that occurred with a student that is of school age and has an IEP. To enter a restraint into the RISC program, you start by signing into the RISC program by using your username and password, and then clicking on the Add New Restraint button in the middle of the page. This is what the sign-in page looks like. As you can see, the Add New Restraint button is in the middle of the LEA RISC page. The green arrow in the upper part of the page points to a button that opens a page of what's new within the RISC program. These are some changes that we have added to the system that has made it easier for the reporter LEA. The blue arrow on this screen shows you the different quarter reporting windows for RISC. The begin date denotes when the quarter opens for reporting, and the end date denotes when reporting should be completed for that quarter. In addition, PDE has built in a 2-week window to allow the LEAs to receive restraint reports that have occurred with students that are placed in other out-of-district educational settings. This is also the time when the 0 reporting window occurs, the light green arrow. The red arrow shows the restraints that have been reported to date by the LEA. By clicking on the gold print, you can sort chronologically by restraint date, date entered, or by student ID number, gold and diamond. The red print, black hanger, hanging around, tells you that you have restraints reported that have not yet been completed and are still in process to be completed within a week's time when they have been placed in the system. Finally, the purple arrow shows a clock countdown reminding you that you have 19 minutes to complete your task when you are in the RISC program. Clicking on the clock anytime will reset the time back to 19 minutes. Once you click on the Add New Restraint button, this reporting page will open for you to place the restraint information into the RISC program. This reporting document is broken into 3 sections. Section 1, Student Information. Section 2, the Restraint Information section. Section 3, the IEP Information section. All 3 sections need to be filled out to complete the restraint report. I will review the information for Section 1 on this slide. You'll need to fill in the student's PA Secure ID number, grade, age, primary disability, school building, and program location. The grade section, disability category, school building, and program location all have pull downs to help you expedite the reporting process. In the section marked by the blue arrow that reads Select a PA Secure ID, this also provides you a pull down that displays past PA Secure ID numbers that have been entered in your reporting system for that school year. When you click on a past PA Secure ID number, this will populate the first section of this page, saving you some time in filling out this document. When selecting a program location, the teal arrow, the pull down on this section may take you to another pull down to define further where the student's program location is taking place. The approved private schools, the charter schools, charter and cyber, institutional children's placement, and private residential rehabilitative institution are pull downs that have this function. In addition, in the initial program location tab, when you pull down the options of licensed private academic school or segregated program outside of a school building or other, you will have an empty box for you to type in the specific school entity's name. The Section 2 is labeled Restraint Information. As you can see, there is a lot of information, so we will break this information down further into 6 slides. In Section 2 of the Restraint Reporting page, the LEA needs to fill out the antecedent, behavior of concern, and de-escalation techniques. The antecedent is a setting and or circumstance that occurred prior to the behavior of concern. What circumstances occurred that triggered the problem behavior? Please be specific. An example of an antecedent: the student was in art class. The teacher asked the student to put the iPad away and to get out a marker and a piece of paper to begin the assignment. This section is very important, as studying patterns of the antecedents may provide the school entities ideas of how to intervene differently, as well as the teaching of socially acceptable alternative skills to replace problem behaviors. Next, the behavior or behaviors of concern addresses the problem behavior or behaviors. What are the behavior or behaviors that were a clear and present danger to self or others? Please be specific in this section. An example of a behavior: the student repeatedly told the teacher, "No, I want to play on my iPad." The student banged his head on the desk with high intensity, then hit the teacher 3 times in the stomach. The student threw the iPad at a peer, then eloped from the classroom. In the third box, you should provide documentation of the lesser restrictive measures, de-escalation techniques you've tried before a restraint had to be implemented. An example of de-escalation techniques: the teacher utilized a calm voice, if-then statements, and proximity control. Some tips for filling out this section: avoid using student names or staff names. Avoid acronyms. And be specific. The remaining information in Section 2, you will need to follow the prompts. The date when restraint was used, blue arrow. The physical location, yellow arrow, lists the location restraint occurred has been expanded, yet there is still an option of other. If the restraint occurred in an area that currently is not in the pull-down list. Police intervention or predominant type of restraint used, red arrow, is also a drag-down format. Length of restraint, brown arrow, is listed in a 2-box format. The first box is for the minute length of the restraint, and the second box is for the seconds.
This slide is very critical. When you choose Police Intervention under the Select Restraint Type section, which is the blue arrow, it defaults to this page highlighting if the student was handcuffed or tased with the bed arrows. If neither of these occurred and none of these boxes are checked, the restraint report goes through a regular reported restraint. If either of these boxes are checked, a restraint review request, or R3, automatically is generated for the Bureau to do an investigation. The restraint review request, or a R3, is a report generated by the RISC program, which is triggered when a specific box is checked. This information on how the Bureau used the R3 will be shared in more detail further along in our presentation. In this part of the RISC reporting system, it asks you to list how many staff were involved in the restraint, their job titles, if they have been trained or not in a behavioral/restraint system, and also to list the name of the restraint program utilized. Additionally, on this page of the reporting, school entity has to report if an injury had occurred during the restraint. If you check no, you move on to the next section to complete the report. If you click on the box that says yes, an injury occurred to staff or student, at the end of the report when you click Save Restraint or click Save and Complete Restraint, it will take you to a page that will ask you if an injury occurred to staff or student and will prompt you to fill out this section of the injury report. Again, when you click a box that signifies a student is injured or the box that a staff was injured or both were injured, the system will default you to this page at the end of your report when you click on Save Restraint or Save and Complete Restraint. You will have a box to fill out for the student and or staff depending on which box you checked in the previous screen. That's the teal arrow. The second box directs you to and yes or no to if the staff involved in the restraint was trained in a de-escalation technique and safe physical restraint system. If the person is trained, this is where you list the program's name. The third box asks if this injury was a serious medical injury. When you have a serious injury, which is an injury that requires medical attention off of school property, for example, the emergency room, doctor's office, paramedics, etc., you would click yes if a serious injury occurred, as well as fill out the previous boxes above. Additionally, put the date of when you reported the serious injury in the designated box. The restraint team is also requiring you to contact the Bureau of Special Education within 48 hours of the serious injury. This is an injury that occurred during a restraint that required outside medical attention, such as at an emergency room or doctor's office. Contact Keith Folk at kfocht@pa.gov or your Bureau of Special Education advisor assigned to your LEA. Section 3 is the IEP information section of restraint reporting. When you click the Yes button asking, was law enforcement handcuffs involved in the restraint, and or the Yes button for was the child charged in a safe schools offense, this will trigger a Bureau of Special Education investigation because under Chapter 14.133E, it states the following aversive techniques of handling behavior are considered inappropriate and may not be used by agencies in educational programs. Electric shock and handcuffs fall into this category. 14.133. A. Positive rather than negative measures must form the basis of behavioral support programs to ensure that all students and eligible young children shall be free from demeaning treatment, the use of aversive techniques, and the unreasonable use of restraints. Again, handcuffs will fall into this regulatory reference in addition to electric shock. In addition to your charter school and your cyber charter schools reporting, that falls under Chapter 711.46. Positive rather than negative measures shall form the basis of positive behavior support programs to ensure that all students shall be free from demeaning treatment, the use of aversive techniques, and the unreasonable use of restraints. Chapter 10.23E. For a student with a disability who has a positive behavior support plan, upon notification to a local police department that a student with a disability has committed an incident listed in this section 1303-A, B 4.1 or 4.2 of the Safe Schools Act, a school entity shall act in accordance with 14.133H or 711.46H. 10.23G. For a student with a disability who does not have a positive behavior support plan, upon notification to a local police department that a student with a disability has committed an incident listed in Section 1303A, B 4.1 or 4.2 of the Safe Schools Act, the school entity shall convene the student's IEP team. At this meeting, the IEP team shall consider whether a positive behavior support plan should be developed to address the student's behavior. Back to the IEP section. On the parent notification line, pointed out by the blue arrow. Once a restraint occurs, the parent guardian should be notified by the LEA within 1 day. The blue arrow points out the parent notification line. The green arrow points to was the use of restraints listed in the IEP. Yes or no? On the same reporting page marked by the red arrow, the LEA needs to share when the IEP team met after the restraint occurred. So not only does the LEA/educational entity need to contact the parent and or guardian when the restraint occurred, yet also the LEA needs to convene an IEP meeting within 10 school days to discuss the restraint and possible changes within the IEP and or program to decrease the behavior that caused the restraint to be administered. When you have an IEP meeting, you can check the boxes depicted by the blue arrow that expressed what was accomplished. Multiple buttons can be checked. If you had an IEP meeting and placed the IEP date in the Date IEP Team Meeting Held box, you do not place anything in the Date Waiver Signed box. The date waiver signed is when the parent or parents put in writing and signed their request to waive the IEP that was to be held within 10 days of the designated restraint. Please note the reminder the RISC team has placed on this page on waivers. We are monitoring waivers closely this year. We have also seen some educational entities utilizing the waiver process extensively. In addition, we are also seeing some with a pattern of having an IEP reconvened, yet not making any changes to the program of the student. So if you convene an IEP as part of Chapter 711, C1 for charter schools, or Chapter
14.133
for public schools, which states the use of restraints to control the aggressive behavior of an individual student or eligible young child shall cause the school entity to notify the parent of the use of restraint and shall cause a meeting of the IEP team within 10 school days of the inappropriate behavior causing the use of restraints unless the parent, after written notice, agrees in writing to waive the meeting. At this meeting, the IEP team shall consider whether the student or eligible young child needs a functional behavioral assessment, reevaluation, a new or revised positive behavior support plan, or a change of placement to address the inappropriate behavior. As stated above, when there is an IEP, one of these consideration topics and/or functions should be checked and reflected within that IEP. Once you have filled out the 3-section reporting document, the student information, restraint information, and the IEP information sections, you have the option to click on Save Restraint or Save and Complete Restraint. The Save Restraint button allows you to fill out the report partway and complete it at a later time. Many times there is more information gathering needed to fully complete the document. Clicking this button allows this to occur. The RISC program will provide the LEA a reminder to complete this specific report 2 weeks later. When the Save and Complete Restraint button is clicked, it sends the final report to the RISC program to be read by the RISC team. The report can be reopened, yet Leader Services or one of the RISC team members need to be notified for this to happen.
The next section of our presentation focuses on what scenarios with restraint reports require investigation. The Bureau of Special Education investigates items identified on this slide. In reviewing the RISC reports LEAs have reported into the RISC system, anytime one of these circumstances occur, the RISC team notifies the Bureau of Special Education advisor assigned to that LEA. The advisor makes contact with the LEA to discuss the concern of that reported restraint and to determine if a resolution plan is needed. Sometimes there may be a clerical error in inputting the information. Sometimes the data or investigation shows a systemic issue which requires more training by the LEA, and there may be a need for the LEA to review and revise policies and procedures. The investigation document the RISC team sends out is called a Restraint Review Request, or R3. There are 6 scenarios where the bullet is highlighted red on this slide. These 6 scenarios have a restraint review request electronically pushed out by the Leader Services system. The other 3 scenarios at the end are reviewed by the RISC team, where the BSC advisor assigned to the LEA is notified, as well as the LEA, and possibly the educational placement if outside of the LEA. When a restraint review request, or R3, is electronically sent to your LEA, if one or more of the 6 scenarios highlighted in yellow from the previous slide occur, the primary RISC contact person of your LEA will receive the email on this slide that indicates an R3 investigation report has been sent to your LEA. Additionally, After the LEA receives the email sharing there is an R3, the LEA will also receive electronic notice on the RISC sign-in page as shown on this slide. Just click on the yellow notice box at the top and it will take you to a page where you can view the Restraint Review Request, or R3, and the restraint report that was submitted in RISC, causing that R3 to be developed. When you click on the yellow box notifying you there is a Restraint Review Request, R3, for you to review, it takes you to this page. You can review the R3 document by clicking on the View R3 script in the Action column. This will open the R3 document for you to review and complete. The restraint entry form the LEA submitted in RISC, which generated an R3, can be viewed by clicking the date under the Date of Restraint column. The next 4 slides provide a sample of an R3. This document is usually a one-page document, yet has been spread out over 4 slides to accommodate the view. The first section of the R3 provides the BSC advisor and the LEA guidance for discussion points and a purpose an R3 was developed. In this sample R3, the staff member who conducted the restraint was not trained in a de-escalation restraint system. In addition, this first section shows demographics as noted. The second section of the R3 provides regulatory language and guidance reference information substantiating the purpose of the R3 and considerations for the LEA and BSC advisor. The third and most important part of the R3 is a detailed question format to determine if the correct regulatory processes were followed before and after the restraint occurred. There are questions asked of the LEA to fill out, which provide the BSC more detail if the regulatory processes were followed or a need to improve upon the school's systems, such as training of staff and/or positive behavior support strategies within the educational programs are needed. The purpose of the R3 is to point out a regulatory process or procedure that is not being followed by the LEA and provide regulatory guidance and dialogue between the LEA and the Bureau of Special Education via the BSC advisor to align back to compliance. In most cases, the LEA and advisor would develop a resolution plan to address the issue which caused the R3 to be sent. The LEA would then fulfill their obligation under the resolution plan design. This slide shows the 4th section of the document, which provides the LEA a field to upload applicable files of supporting documents. Finally, it is electronically returned to the advisor in the RISC system. The advisor determines if further action is necessary and electronically submits the completed R3 to the RISC team for review.
So the next few slides, PA code comparison, we provided you a Chapter 71146, which is the Charter Cyber Charter School regulations under Chapter 22, Education, and Chapter 14133, which is the Special Education for the Public Schools. And what we wanted to do with this is just share with you a comparison. They're similar in so many ways, and there's a few subtle differences. And again, we don't have the time to share that out today, but we do have the time to share with you the differences in the narrative, and for that, feel free to read that on your own. So this pretty much ends our presentation today. I want to thank you for your time, continuing to do a good job, and again, obviously focusing on positive behavior support and doing the right things for the children out there. Have a great day. Bye.